You've heard it from every direction. If you have diabetes, drink your coffee black and leave the creamer alone. It sounds responsible. It sounds like settled science. And after more than 20 years helping people over 60 get their blood sugar under control, I'm telling you, it's one of the most misunderstood pieces of advice out there. Here's what gets left out. Black coffee isn't neutral either. A meta-analysis that pulled 18 separate trials found that caffeine itself raises your glucose and lowers how well your body responds to insulin. In people with type 2 diabetes, caffeine equal to about 2 cups, with a meal pushed blood sugar roughly 8% higher than a day with none. So that pure black cup you've been suffering through, it was quietly working against you. The real truth is narrower and kinder. It was never the creamer that threatened your blood sugar. It's the kind of creamer. Choose right, and a splash in your coffee can be perfectly safe after 60, and sometimes steadier than black. So today, I'll give you 5 creamers I'd actually welcome in your cup. What's in each one and why it works? Pay close attention to number 5, the one you'd swear your doctor told you to avoid, because I'll show you why. In moderation, it may be the safest splash of all. But before we get into them, do something for me. Tell me what's in your cup right this moment. Whatever you pour in your coffee, type it down in the comments. And if you'd like more honest, trustworthy guidance on keeping your blood sugar steady after 60, subscribe so the next one finds you. Let me start with the thing almost nobody says out loud. When I talk about creamer, I don't just mean the bottle with the picture of hazelnuts on the front. I mean anything you stir into your coffee to soften it. The flavored stuff, yes, but also half and half, a spoonful of heavy cream, a pour of soy milk. All of it counts. So when I tell you the right creamer can be safe, I'm not playing word games and pointing you toward some watered-down imitation. I mean the real things people actually reach for in the morning. Now, let's come back to that 8%. Why isn't black coffee as harmless as we've all been led to believe? Because of a meta-analysis published in 2019, drawing on 18 separate trials in which researchers found that caffeine itself raises your glucose and lowers how well your body responds to insulin. That's exactly why so many of my patients drink their coffee with nothing in it and still watch their morning number sit stubbornly high. The good news is this: when you add a little of the right fat or protein, you can soften that response. Think of it this way: your morning coffee wakes up more than your mind. It nudges your liver to release stored sugar into your blood, like revving the engine hard while the gas tank is still nearly empty. So drinking it black was never some moral reward. And here's the part that surprises people most. That little splash of the right creamer isn't just harmless. It can leave your blood sugar steadier than the black coffee you've been forcing down. So, what makes a creamer safe? I hold everyone to the same short list. Almost no added sugar, under 3 grams. Low in carbohydrate, under 4 grams. No inflammatory additives like carrageenan. No hydrogenated oils. Steer clear of most things labeled sugar-free. Because so many of them lean on sucralose, I'll explain exactly why that matters when we get to number 3. I'll walk you through all 5, lightest to richest. But it's number 5, the richest one of all, that turns out to be the gentlest on your blood sugar. I think of Nancy here. She came to me at 66, and early on, she admitted something quietly. I dreaded my own coffee every morning. For years, she'd been drinking it black, hating every sip, because somewhere along the way, she'd decided that was simply the rule for someone like her. Nobody had ever told her there was another way. So, let's start where she should have started. The simplest, cleanest option on the list. Number 1, Nut Pods Unsweetened. If you want the easiest possible place to begin, this is it. It's built on a base of almond and coconut, and it asks almost nothing of your blood sugar. Look at what's actually in a tablespoon. 10 calories, 1 gram of fat, 0 grams of saturated fat, 0 grams carbohydrate, 0 grams sugar. That's about as close to nothing as a creamer can get while still turning your coffee a soft pale color and rounding off that sharp edge. And the ingredient list is just as clean. Water, coconut cream, almonds, acacia gum, dipotassium phosphate, sunflower lecithin, sea salt, and gellan gum. No sweetener slipped in. No carrageenan, which is one of those additives I'd rather you not have stirred into something you drink every single day. When I look at that label, there's nothing that makes me pause. And that's exactly what I want from an everyday creamer. So why does it pass my test so easily? Because with no sugar and no carbohydrate to speak of, it barely registers on your blood sugar at all. You get the comfort of a creamy cup without the rise. And it's free of the additives that quietly stir up inflammation in the background, which matters more as the years add up. Who is this one really for? If you want something light and neutral, something that softens your coffee without taking it over, this is your creamer. It's also a genuine relief for anyone whose stomach has turned against dairy over the years, the way so many of us find it does after 60. And if you've moved toward eating plant-based, it fits there too. No compromise needed. One practical note: make sure you pick up the one that actually says unsweetened on the carton. Nut Pods makes flavored versions too, and some of those taste like a different product entirely. The unsweetened is the one you want for what we're talking about here. And once you open it, keep it in the refrigerator and use it within about 7 to 10 days, because a clean product like this has nothing extra in it to make it last. Now, if you'd like to keep your blood sugar even flatter than this, there's a way to do that. And it comes down to one ingredient most people overlook. That's where the next one earns its place. Number 2, unsweetened soy milk. And that overlooked ingredient is protein. Of all the plant-based options you can pour into your coffee, soy gives you the most of it, and that turns out to matter for your blood sugar. Here are the numbers. About 2 tablespoons gives you 16 calories, 1 gram of fat, 2 grams of carbohydrate, 1 gram of protein. Pour in enough to lighten a full cup, and you're looking at roughly 4 grams of carbohydrate, which is actually lower than what you'd get from regular cow's milk. But the protein is the real reason it's on this list. Remember what I told you a moment ago? Adding a little protein or fat can soften the rise coffee causes. Soy is where you see that most clearly among the lighter options. That small bit of protein gives your body something to slow down for, so the cup works a little more gently inside you. I know some of you tensed up the moment I said soy because you've heard worrying things about it, especially for older adults. Let me put that to rest in one breath. Most of those fears have been badly overblown, and unsweetened soy milk is, if anything, a heart-friendly choice. There's no reason to be afraid of it in your coffee. A couple of practical notes. Reach for the one marked unsweetened because the vanilla and the regular sweetened versions can carry a startling amount of sugar. Look for a short ingredient list while you're at it. And if you like your coffee with more body, the unsweetened barista versions are thicker and froth up nicely without adding sugar. So, who is this one for? If almonds don't agree with you, soy steps right in and fills that gap, since it isn't a tree nut at all. And if you want something light that also slips a little protein into your morning, this is a smart, easy choice. By now, though, I can hear the question forming for a good number of you. What about the people who simply can't stand coffee that tastes thin and plain? The ones who need a little sweetness to even want to pick up the cup? I haven't forgotten you. And the next one is where we finally talk about how to have that sweetness safely. Number 3, monk fruit / stevia sweetened creamer, for example, Primal. This is for everyone who wants their coffee a little sweet. And here's the good news I've been waiting to give you. You can have that sweetness without sending your blood sugar climbing. The whole thing comes down to how the creamer is sweetened. Take Primal as an example. It's built on a base of coconut oil, MCT oil, and organic coconut milk. And it gets its sweetness from erythritol, monk fruit, and stevia. No added sugar, no artificial flavors. A sweet-flavored cup with none of the sugar that name usually carries. So, why do I point you toward monk fruit and stevia in particular? Because they cause almost no insulin response at all. Your body tastes the sweetness, but your blood sugar stays where it was. That's the whole reason these sweeteners earn a place in anything I'd recommend. Now, why steer away from sucralose? This isn't me being fussy. A study published in the journal Cell in 2022 tested several sweeteners head-to-head, and of all of them, only sucralose and saccharin clearly worsen people's blood sugar response. The researchers were even able to reproduce that effect by transferring the gut bacteria into germ-free mice, which tells you the change was real. One 30-day trial found sucralose dropped insulin sensitivity by just over 20%. Stevia, on the other hand, the riboside A in it, actually nudged helpful families of gut bacteria in the right direction. Same sweet taste, opposite story underneath. One honest caution for those of us over 60. Erythritol in larger amounts can leave some people a little bloated or gassy. So start with a small pour and let your stomach get used to it. There's no prize for rushing. This one's really for the sweet coffee lovers. The folks who've been reaching for a flavored, sugary creamer every morning and didn't know there was a clean way to keep that pleasure. Betty comes to mind. At 70, she'd been starting every day with a creamer proudly labeled sugar-free, certain she was doing the right thing. When she switched to a monk fruit version, she told me her stomach simply felt easier, lighter, in a way she hadn't expected. So let me ask you something. Have you been forcing down black coffee for years because you thought you had to? Tell me how long it's been. I'd like to know. Now, what if you'd rather have the real thing? Actual dairy, the way you grew up with it. Number 4. Real half and half, plain unsweetened. And I want to say this plainly because so many of you have been waiting to hear it. Real dairy is still allowed. You don't have to give it up to keep your blood sugar in line. Look at the numbers and you'll see why. A tablespoon of half and half runs about 20 calories, 1.7 grams of fat, 0.6 grams of carbohydrate, 0.6 grams of sugar, just the natural lactose, no sugar added. For something that tastes this much like the coffee you remember, that's a remarkably gentle profile. And that little bit of real fat does something useful. Picture sugar entering your bloodstream like water through a wide-open tap, fast and all at once. A touch of fat narrows that tap. It turns the rush into a slower, steadier stream, so the sugar arrives more gradually instead of hitting all at once. That's the quiet advantage of real dairy that the low-fat advice of years past completely missed. Which brings me to the fear so many of you still carry, that fat and dairy are bad for your heart. I understand where that came from, but the evidence has genuinely shifted underneath it. A state-of-the-art review in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology placed whole-fat dairy among the foods high in saturated fat that are not linked to greater cardiovascular risk. And a pooled analysis of biomarkers published in PLOS Medicine in 2018 found that the markers of dairy fat in people's blood were tied to a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes, not a higher one. Read that again, because it's the opposite of what most of us were taught. Now, I'm not handing you a license here. This is still something to use with a sensible hand, a splash, not a flood. Moderation hasn't gone out of style, but the days of treating a little real cream in your coffee as a dangerous indulgence are behind us. So, who is half and half for? If you're loyal to real dairy, if you want your coffee to taste the way it always has and you reach for it every single morning, this is a perfectly reasonable everyday choice. And if half and half surprised you, hold on, because the last one on this list sounds like the exact opposite of everything you've been told. The richest, most indulgent option of them all, the one I suspect you've been carefully avoiding for years. Number 5. Heavy cream. And I know exactly what's going through your mind right now because I've watched it cross 100 faces in my office. Of everything in the dairy case, this is the one you've been treating like it's off limits. The richest, the most decadent, the one that surely must be the worst possible thing for your blood sugar. It's almost the gentlest of them all. Let me show you the numbers because they tell the whole story. A tablespoon of heavy cream has 0.42 grams of carbohydrate, 0.20 grams of sugar, practically nothing, 5.5 grams of fat, of which 3.4 grams are saturated, 51 calories. But because there's almost no sugar in it at all, it doesn't lift your blood sugar the way sweetened creamers or syrupy flavored bottles do. It just doesn't have the thing that causes the rise. Sit with that for a moment, because this is the heart of it. The very creamer you've been most afraid of, the one that felt like cheating, turns out to touch your blood sugar the least. Not because of some trick, but for the simplest reason in the world. There's barely any sugar or lactose left in it to begin with. Now, I have to be careful with you here, and I will be, because this is where I'd never want you to hear only half of what I'm saying. Gentle on your blood sugar does not mean pour as much as you please. These two things are separate. A spoonful is wonderful. Half a cup every day is a different conversation. And while the evidence on dairy fat and the heart has loosened considerably the way I just walked you through, That doesn't erase good judgment. If you live with heart disease or your LDL cholesterol runs high, the amount of saturated fat you take in still deserves a real talk with a doctor who knows your case. I'm not here to tell you those concerns don't exist. I'm here to tell you the picture is more balanced than you are led to believe. I think of Kenneth for this one. He came in at 71, and his chart showed years of carefully steering clear of heavy cream, certain it was the worst choice a man with diabetes could make. He was wearing a continuous glucose monitor at the time, so we decided to simply test it. He stirred a little heavy cream into his morning coffee and watched. His blood sugar barely moved, just the faintest rise. He had a habit of writing his number down in a little notebook every morning. And he told me, with a kind of amazement, that he'd spent years afraid of a number that turned out to be almost flat. What I told Kenneth is the same thing I'll tell you, because the number on a glucose monitor only tells part of the story. The way you use heavy cream matters as much as the cream itself. A tablespoon, the amount that disappears into a single cup, is a world apart from the heavy pour that turns coffee into something closer to dessert. I've watched people here, low in sugar, take it as permission to use 3 or 4 tablespoons at a sitting, several times a day. And at that point, the calories and the saturated fat do start to add up in a way worth paying attention to. So treat it the way you treat any rich, good thing. A measured splash in your morning cup, enjoyed without guilt. Not a habit that quietly grows larger month after month until you've lost track of how much you're really having. The freedom I'm handing you here comes with that one small responsibility. Pour it on purpose, not on autopilot. So here's where we land after all 5. From the lightest splash of nut pods to the richest spoon of heavy cream, the lesson holds from the first to the last. The creamer was never the enemy. It was always the kind. Get that right, and every one of these can keep your morning coffee working for you instead of against you. And that changes how you walk up to your own kitchen counter tomorrow morning. So let it sink in. The thing we started with, coffee creamer, was never the enemy. The kind of creamer was the only thing that ever mattered. Choose well, and that morning cup can quietly work for your blood sugar instead of against it. You don't have to sit there forcing down bitter black coffee, paying a price that was never really owed. 5 safe choices are sitting in your hands now. From the lightest splash to the richest spoon. The fear was the part you can finally set down. Let me give you something to actually do with this. Turn the bottle around and read the first 2 or 3 ingredients. If you see added sugar, corn syrup, hydrogenated oil, or sucralose near the top, put it back. Reach for the short, plain labels you can read out loud. If you want sweetness, choose monk fruit, stevia, or erythritol, never sucralose. And start with a small pour so your stomach adjusts. Measure what you pour, 1 to 2 tablespoons, because most people use 2 or 3 times the serving on the label without realizing it. Become your own evidence. Check your blood sugar an hour or 2 after you try a new creamer and let your own body tell you how it responds. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Of these 5, which one is going into your cup first this week? And just as telling, which creamer are you finally ready to let go of? And if there's someone you care about who's managing their blood sugar but still loves their morning coffee, send this their way. It may be the thing that lifts a little fear off their shoulders too. I'm Dr. Claire Whitmore, and more than anything, I want to see you healthy and enjoying that morning cup without a knot of worry in your chest. Everything I've shared today is here to teach, not to replace the doctor who knows you. And please, never stop or change a diabetes medication, your insulin, your metformin, any of it, without talking to your own doctor first. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you again soon. Don't forget to subscribe.